not being remembered, not making a mark, not mattering in a world that never stops moving. That's the fear behind the fear. Not the moment your heart stops, but the terrifying possibility that it never beat loud enough to be heard, that you might vanish, and nothing will echo after you. We don't lose sleep over death. We lose sleep over being forgotten, over the thought that our name will be washed away like chalk in the rain, our stories archived in someone else's folder, our dreams buried in boxes no one opens. And so, we build resumes, brands, movements, art. We put pieces of ourselves into every corner of the world, not just to participate, but to prove we existed. This isn't vanity. This isn't pride. This is panic in disguise. This is survival through significance. Ernest Becker once wrote that our greatest psychological defense is immortality projects, the things we do to feel like we will live on after we're gone. We chase success, not for wealth alone, but for the illusion of permanence. We start families, not just for love, but for legacy. We dream of writing books, going viral, being quoted long after we're dust. Because if we can't live forever, we hope our name might. But there's a catch. The more we chase legacy, the more we fear the quiet, the silence between the applause, the slow decline of relevance, the moment when your last post fades and nobody notices. That is the true existential dread. Soren Kierkegaard called it angst, not just anxiety, but a metaphysical nausea, a vertigo of the soul, the feeling that you exist in a universe that owes you no meaning. And so, we try to bargain with that emptiness. We try to be louder, brighter, faster. We scream into the void, "Remember me." We overachieve because stillness feels like death. We compare because uniqueness feels like a lie. We obsess over purpose because chaos terrifies us. And we wrap all of it in pretty words like productivity and influence. But deep down, we're not chasing happiness. We're running from insignificance. We confuse noise with presence. We think impact means proof. We believe that being seen is the same as being known. If nobody ever saw your art, would it still be worth painting? If no one remembered your name, would you still choose to live the same way? These are uncomfortable questions because they strip away the armor. They strip away the followers, the metrics, the applause, the legacy. They ask us to look in the mirror and face a reflection that might not echo. And yet, that reflection might be the only real part of us. The part that doesn't need legacy to be whole. The part that isn't afraid to disappear because it knows it was never separate to begin with. So today we'll dig deep. We'll unearth the fear behind our most polished identities, the shadow stitched into every ambition, the quiet panic behind our loudest performances. Because the fear of death doesn't rule you, the fear of insignificance does. And it's time you met it face to face. Before you feared being insignificant, you were taught what it meant to matter. That lesson began before you could even spell your name. As a child, you learned quickly. Smiles came when you were helpful. Praise followed performance. Love, though unconditional in theory, often felt earned. You were rewarded when you stood out, and ignored when you didn't, seen when you impressed, forgotten when you simply were. The playground became your first stage, the classroom, your first arena. Your identity became a scoreboard, grades, medals, trophies, report cards. Somewhere between your first gold star and your first existential crisis, you absorbed a dangerous belief. If I don't achieve, I disappear. That belief followed you into adolescence, when fitting in meant survival and being special meant worth. The world didn't just ask you to participate, it asked you to outperform. To be interesting, to be brilliant, to be unique in ways it could measure and celebrate. You weren't told to find truth. You were told to find a label. You weren't told to explore your being. You were told to build a brand. And so the fear began to crystallize. It wasn't about failing. It was about being forgotten. Not losing, but becoming invisible. This fear is primal, and terror management theory explains why. TMT says we construct meaning to shield against mortality. To cope with mortality, we attach ourselves to things larger than life. Religion, nationalism, community, legacy. We fight for causes. We hustle for influence. We sacrifice for institutions. Because deep down, we believe, if I'm part of something that outlives me, I don't fully die. We're not building for joy. We're building for immortality. Even love is shaped by this fear. We seek once-in-a-lifetime kind of love, to be eternal in someone's story. We want to be someone they can't forget. Our gods, prayers, and rituals often carry a silent bargain. Make me matter, make me permanent. This fear has built entire civilizations. It's why we carve names in stone, why we write books, why we chase generational wealth. We are terrified of being average, terrified that our life will dissolve the moment our heart stops. So we try to leave proof, some mark, some echo. But in doing so, we become performers of our own existence. Every action, every ambition, filtered through a single anxious lens. Will this be remembered? That's not freedom. That's fear in disguise. And the most heartbreaking part, you don't even realize how deep it runs. You think you're chasing success, but you're really chasing permanence. You think you're building confidence, but you're shielding yourself from being forgotten. You think you're living your truth, but maybe you're living a strategy to outrun insignificance. The irony is cruel. The harder you chase significance, the further you drift from presence. And all the while, the fear that shaped your childhood starts shaping your soul. The fear of insignificance isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't knock on the door of your mind and introduce itself. It slips in quietly and makes itself at home in your choices. You wake up, and the first thing you check isn't how you feel. It's who noticed you. Notifications, mentions, reminders that you haven't disappeared. You pick your outfit not by what feels good, but by what will photograph well. What will signal I'm relevant, I'm worth your attention. You work not just to earn, but to prove. To prove that you're not falling behind. To prove that you belong. To prove that your time here is meaningful. That fear becomes your compass. But instead of pointing you toward purpose, it points you toward performance. Your identity becomes a production, a highlight reel, a carefully curated illusion of significance. And here's the thing, you might not even realize it's happening, because the fear doesn't just change how you act, it rewires how you think. You start measuring everything by its potential impact. Will this post go viral? Will this job title impress? Will this make me stand out? You start saying yes to things you don't believe in. Start chasing goals you didn't choose. Start becoming someone you never meant to be. All because you're terrified of fading into the background. The fear becomes your filter. You start avoiding the ordinary, the quiet, the simple. Because ordinary doesn't get applause. Quiet doesn't get likes, and simple doesn't get remembered. So you push harder, you become louder. You fill every silence with productivity, every pause with proof. You overcommit, you overpromise, you overdeliver, and still, it doesn't feel like enough. Because deep down, the voice whispers, if you stop, you disappear. If you're not remarkable, you're irrelevant. If you're not seen, you don't exist. And this isn't just mental, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's physical. Burnout isn't just about doing too much. It's about feeling like your value is always one step ahead of you, and you're constantly chasing it. You're not just tired, you're terrified. Terrified that if you pause, the world moves on without you. You fear being forgotten more than being exhausted. You fear being left behind more than being broken. You fear being unremarkable more than being unhappy. So even your rest becomes performative. You share your self-care. You caption your healing. You style your vulnerability. Because being real without being seen feels useless. And maybe the most tragic part, even love starts to bend to this fear. You want to be unforgettable? To be someone's never again. Not because it's romantic, but because it proves you mattered. You begin to confuse presence with permanence. Think that being loved means being etched into someone's forever. But no love, no success, no achievement can erase this fear. Because it doesn't live outside of you. It lives inside. And until you recognize how it controls you, you will keep performing your life instead of living it. This fear of being insignificant was always there. But now, it's weaponized. In the past, you could fear being forgotten after you were gone. Today, you can feel forgotten in real time. Technology didn't just change how we live. It rewired how we matter. Social media didn't invent the desire to be seen. It industrialized it. You don't just live a moment. You document it. You filter it. You measure it in reactions, shares, and engagement. You don't just exist. You broadcast. And when your life becomes a feed, the fear of irrelevance becomes constant. One post doesn't perform, you panic. One story goes unnoticed, you shrink. One friend doesn't respond, you spiral. The algorithm becomes your god. Your worth is no longer how deeply you feel, but how wide you're seen. Your identity becomes your content. Your emotions become captions. Your privacy becomes a currency you trade for attention. Your resume becomes a highlight reel of everything you've ever done, every metric you've ever hit, every title you've ever worn. Not because it reflects your truth, but because it helps you stay afloat. You no longer ask, is this job meaningful? You ask, will this job look meaningful? Even your passions get polluted. You start creating art to trend. You start teaching to scale. You start loving to post about it. And slowly, your soul starts starving because nothing you're doing is rooted in peace. It's all rooted in pressure. The pressure to be remembered. The pressure to be somebody. The pressure to not fade. But fading is inevitable. The feed moves on. The news cycle resets. The crowd forgets. And the parts of you that were built solely to be liked shatter. Because they were never built on truth. They were built on performance. Modern life hasn't made you more secure. It's made you more dependent. But you're not broken. The system is rigged. And the only way out is to stop playing their game. Because in a world that shouts, be visible at all costs, your quiet, grounded existence is a form of rebellion. So, what now? If legacy is a lie, if significance is unstable, if the world forgets even its loudest voices, what's the point? Maybe the point isn't to be remembered. Maybe the point is to be real. Maybe significance was never something to earn. Maybe it was something to surrender. You've spent your life trying to leave a mark. But what if the deepest life isn't carved into history? It's carved into the present, not remembered forever, but felt completely. What if your life isn't about being important, but about being awake? Awake to the people in front of you. Awake to the beauty in smallness. Awake to the moments no one will ever see. Because meaning isn't made of metrics. It's made of mindfulness. And worth isn't something you prove. It's something you remember. You were never meant to live in pursuit of applause. You were meant to live in alignment with your soul. Maybe this is the beginning of your rebellion. You stop chasing the spotlight. You stop shouting into the void. You stop dressing your wounds in hashtags and filters. You choose presence over performance. You choose quiet over constant commentary. You choose depth over reach. And it won't be easy, because the world will keep pulling you back. Back to the feed, back to the grind, back to the illusion that being someone is better than being yourself. But the freedom you're searching for is already here. In your breath, in your stillness, in your choice to step out of the race. You are not the impact you create. You are not the name they remember. You are not your virality, your brand, your resume, your numbers. You are the love you give when no one's watching. The truth you speak without reward. The art you create without an audience. The kindness that leaves no trace, except in someone's day. That's your real legacy. And it doesn't need to be preserved. It just needs to be lived. So here's your quiet revolution. Let go of being someone. Be whole. Be honest. Be invisible, if that's what peace requires. Because significance will always slip through your fingers. But presence, that's something you can hold. You don't need to leave behind a name they write in books. Leave behind a presence they feel when you enter the room. That's enough. That's more than enough. Kierkegaard once said, "The most painful state of being is remembering the future, especially the one you'll never have." But you're not a memory waiting to be written. You're a moment waiting to be lived. Don't waste it chasing the illusion of eternal relevance. You're here now, and that's all the miracle you ever needed. Live boldly. Legacy is an illusion.